Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgier kind of content, hit that like and subscribe button. Check us out on Patreon, and a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you need any ttrpg needs for IRL games, real life ttrpg games, check out Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister, get 10% off all of your purchases. With all that out of the way, we're talking about Way of the Sun Soul Monk. The Way of the Sun Soul Monk comes to us from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Again, one of the better books they've put out. The Sun Soul Monk is your Dragon Ball Z fighter type of character. You really are built around shooting these ki blasts, basically, and doing abilities that you can easily reflavor as special moves from Dragon Ball Z. It's right there for the taking. It's a very cool concept. It does give you a cool range build for your monk. So if you're interested in becoming range, this is the monk build that you can do. It's very, very flavorful, and it does deal a lot of radiant damage, which is a hard damage to deal so often. So if you're going to go into a dark campaign, you're going into Ravenloft, you're going into the Shadowfell, you're going into anything that is going to be heavily undead, this monk is going to go miles. Radiant Sunbolt. Starting when you choose this tradition at 3rd level, you can hurl searing bolts of magical radiance. You gain a new attack option that you can use with the attack action. The special attack is a ranged spell attack with a range of 30 feet. You are proficient with it, and you add your dexterity modifier to its attack and damage rolls. Its damage is radiant, and its damage die is a d4. This die changes as you gain monk levels, as shown in the martial arts column of the monk table. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can use this special attack as part of it. You can spend 1 key point to make the special attack twice as a bonus action. When you gain the extra attack feature, the special attack can be used for any of the attacks you make as part of the attack action. Here's something that you really need to understand. When you take the attack action on your turn and use this special attack, you can then use 1 key point and make the attack twice. So at 3rd level, this gives you the opportunity to attack 3 times with a ranged attack that does whatever your key die is. At this point, it would be about a d4. So you're rocking out, but you're adding your dexterity modifier on top of it. When you only get 1 attack per round, 3 attacks is kind of a lot. And you add on your dexterity modifier. If you're not rolling for stats, you have probably a 3. So that's at least 9 extra damage, which at this level is probably going to kill basically anything for 1 key point. As your martial arts die increases, this gets better and better and better. Eventually, you'll be rocking out a d10, which is pretty good. You'll basically be doing Eldritch Blast damage as a monk for your ranged attacks, which is a great option to switch up and change up your fighting style if you need to be, again, a ranged fighter. And yeah, a searing bolt of magical radiance is just like a little ki blast that all the Dragon Ball Z characters fight and fire off often. Searing Arc Strike. At 6th level, you gain the ability to channel your ki into searing waves of energy. Immediately after you take the attack action on your turn, you can spend 2 key points to cast the Burning Hand spell as a bonus action. You can spend additional key points to cast Burning Hands as a higher level spell. Each additional key point you spend increases the spell level by 1. The maximum number of key points, 2, plus any additional points that you can spend on the spell equals half your monk level. So I think the math comes out that the highest level you can cast this spell is, I believe, at 7th level. I didn't really do the math too much, but I'm just kind of estimating, which is pretty interesting. Here's the caveat as to why this ability kind of doesn't get a lot of love. People often forget that you have to take your attack action first. So you're going to make your 2 attacks, and then you're going to cast Burning Hands. If you do so, the way you have to calculate damage isn't to the one target you attacked. You have to calculate it out to the total amount of damage you did to all of the enemies around you. As a monk, you don't really have a lot of options to hit multiple enemies if you're not spreading your attack around. This is a great early fight ability. Yes, it will consume larger amounts of key points if you wanted to use this, and depending on what kind of monk you like to play, some people save their key points specifically for Flurry of Blows and then Stunning Strike, and that's kind of where most of them go. But that's really up to you how you want to do it. In this situation, if you're fighting a group of enemies that are together that you can hit at least 2 or 3 with Burning Hands, your damage might be better off dumping a couple of these into here as opposed to just throwing a couple of Flurry of Blows out there. It depends on who you are as a player. It depends on how gutsy and how you spend your resources. If you're more frivolous with spending them, you're probably going to see a lot more stuff like this. If you're more conservative with them, then you probably will save them mostly for Stunning Strikes. I like the idea of punching twice and then throwing Burning Hands out there. Thematically, it looks cool. It's very fun. And it gives you a way to deal a significant amount of damage. If you dumped out even like a 3rd level Burning Hands into an area, yet you're not killing anything if you compare it to spells that a wizard would get at that point, but you do that blanket of damage already, you help to lower their overall max HP, and you already did your single target damage for that round. Someone else that's going to throw an AoE into the same area has a better chance of just eliminating them. It's an added on to your regular 2 attacks. That's where it works. That's what makes this better than just being able to cast a level 1 spell at 6th level. Searing Sunburst. At 11th level, you gain the ability to create an orb of light that erupts into a devastating explosion. As an action, you magically create an orb and hurl it at a point you choose within 150 feet, where it erupts into a sphere of radiant life for a brief but deadly instant. Each creature in a 20-foot radius sphere must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 2d6 radiant damage. A creature doesn't need to make the saving throw if the creature is behind total cover that is opaque. You can increase this sphere's damage by spending key points. Each point you spend, up to a maximum of 3, increases the damage by 2d6. So this thematically is your end-all DBZ beam weapon. This is it. This is your Gohan versus Cell. This is Goku versus Kefla. This is any ability that shoots out that giant energy beam that you want. So it is just something you can cast. It doesn't say you're limited to only using it once. You can just keep doing this. And I think that's where a lot of people just like read it and just add on limitations because there aren't any. You can up it to a maximum of 3, which means you're dealing 8d6, which is a fireball for 3 key points. At 11th level, 3 key points really isn't that much, but understand, if you have the availability to hit multiple people, you could just do this every turn. It is radiant damage, so it is great for clearing out a lot of things. If they do make the save, they don't take half damage, which is really what is kind of difficult. Con saves are one of the harder saves to make, I get that. But you're hitting such a huge area, you're going to get some of them. It's just a fact. You are going to get some of them. But you can do this every round. Forever. You can just keep throwing the Searing Sunburst every turn you don't have something right in front of you, which is kind of an oversight in my mind, but really understand that you could do this often, and you're casting Fireball. I don't think the Eldritch Knight gets Fireball until like significantly later, and it's every round. Again, that con save 50-50, but it's radiant damage. It's a hard damage to gain, especially at that level for that kind of a radius. It's a great damage type, a huge AoE, and it equates to fireball damage if you want it to, but you can always do this. If you needed just to draw attention to something, this is a great way just to draw attention. But it's cool. It's really just a cool ability, and I think it's great, and I think it's better than people conceive, because if you blanket it to hit multiple people, that's where you benefit, because some will make it, but some definitely will not, and that's the cool part. Sun Shield. At 17th level, you become wreathed in a luminous magical aura. You shed bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an additional 30 feet. You can extinguish or restore the light as a bonus action. If a creature hits you with a melee attack while the light shines, you can use your reaction to deal radiant damage to the creature. The radiant damage equals 5 plus your wisdom modifier. So, this is your Super Saiyan 2 or whatever ability. This just turns on that magical aura, which is very, very cool. Gloomstalkers will hate you if you get this ability. But that's what that is. This is just that aura that all the Z fighters have. And the fact that you can use a reaction to deal, basically at this point, it's got to be 10. 10 damage, radiant damage on a reaction it's not huge, but depending on how often you've been using a reaction or what you've been using a reaction for, if something's meleeing you, yeah, I'd imagine getting that extra radiant damage might be beneficial. It's one of those things where at this level, and it's a high level, you probably won't see this most often, and 10 radiant damage isn't a big number. It's every round you get 10 for being hit. Every round. So you add that up, and that really starts to snowball pretty quickly. Anything that does, I like to call it thorn damage, but anything that reflects damage onto an enemy stacks up over time, because you're going to get hit a lot if you have one of those abilities, and it's just beneficial to use it. It's a reaction, so again, you have to measure that against whatever the reaction abilities you might have, or you've gained, or maybe you multi-class. But thematically, you look awesome. You look like Goku when he found a new form. Like it's very, very thematic. It's cool, and it's a passive. You turn it on, you turn it off whenever you feel like. If you didn't have dark vision and you spent this whole time without it, now you have light. Now you don't have to worry about carrying a torch. You have a perpetual light source, because that is you and your growing madness. It's just a benefit to be able to do something with your reaction that gives a flat damage. And radiant damage is very rarely resisted, so you're always going to add that on. Our final thoughts with Spelljammer and the Oozling. This is how you are your Majin Buu. This is how you make yourself pink and you're evil and you devour things with osmosis. That's how you get it done. It is awesome to be that just vicious, and that's always what I think about when I think about the this kind of monk. The radiant damage is great. As a monk, it gives you options for everything you don't normally have with your base kit. Your base monk kit is to run up and pummel everything. This gives you an opportunity to be ranged completely. And on top of that, it gives you AoE abilities so you can fight larger groups, which is something you always have trouble with. I mean, it's profound how often you run into a situation where you're a monk or you're a fighter or you're a barbarian and you have to fight 3 or 4 people at the same time. And it's just a singular chopping down of a tree of one by one by one by one. This helps to mitigate that. And it gives you a lot of times the availability, because you got your 2 attacks anyway. You now can add on that Searing Strike. You now can add on that Burning Hands. You can add on these things to additionally grow your base attack. It's hard to have magic weapons. Nobody gives you brass knuckles as a monk, and they should. But it is a great way to always have an answer to a combat scenario as a monk. And role-playing wise as a monk, because you have high wisdom, you can always have insight and good perception, so your adventuring stuff is pretty covered. But it gives you the one things you don't get in any of the other monk classes. The way the Drunken Master gives you a few options to hit a whole couple of other people, but it is one attack per person, and it won't equate to being able to hit 2 or 3 people with a higher level Burning Hands on top of 2 regular attacks. And that's kind of where it comes in. As a monk, you do have a lot of tricky things you have to deal with, a lot of things you have to balance, and this gives you options that you can't have anywhere else. And that's what makes it so versatile, and everybody loves the anime superhero that can shoot beams of energy. That being said, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you've made it this far, please hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to the channel. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description. The link for Dice Legion is also in the description. If you need any ttrpg needs for your real life games, use the promo code Sinister and use our good friends at Dice Legion. All being said and done, thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.